and just be as honest as possible. Don't guess.
And then were you able to make a identification of the individual that you believed was the shooter that night?
Yes, sir.
May I publish, Your Honor?
Yes, you may.
Publishing State Exhibit number 14. Can you tell the members of the jury which individual you selected as the person that you saw that shot the individual at the Chevron that night?
Yeah, the top right.
Is that individual number 3?
Yes, sir.
And does that bear your initials as well?
That is correct, sir.
Did all the events that you testified to occur in Palm Beach County, Florida?
Yes, sir.
May I have one moment, Your Honor?
Yes.
No further questions.
Hello.
How you doing today, sir?
The one, where's at the back door?
Good morning, Mr. Colvin. Would you like to do the screen? You've been in this gas station numerous times, correct?
That is correct.
Have you ever gone out the back door?
Yeah. Usually at a certain time you can't exit it, but you mean like the back door or the door that?
The one that was locked.
Yeah, I went out that way before. Yes, sir.
And that's you on the phone, is that correct or not?
That is correct.
And you did try and get out the back door, is that correct?
That is correct.
Definitely the back door was locked, is that correct?
The door right there, yes. I'm trying to exit was locked. Yes.
And you tried pushing it open, it was definitely a door that you could not get through, is that correct?
Without a doubt, I could not. Yes, sir.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Were you ready?
No, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. You can step in. Call your next witness.
The state calls Dr. Reinhard Motte.
Do you swear or affirm that the evidence you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Good morning.
Please, court.
Go ahead, Mr. President.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, or good morning.
Could you please state your full name and spell your last name for the record?
My name is Reinhard Motte. Last name is Motte.
And how are you currently employed?
I'm an associate medical examiner in Broward County.
How long have you been an associate medical examiner in Broward County?
Since December 2nd, I was appointed to that position. I used to work here in Palm Beach County, retired November 30 a year ago. Now I've been appointed, just going to work part-time and help out in the Broward office.
How long have you, all told, worked as an associate medical examiner in all the counties that you worked at?
Since July 1st, 1997. I've been an associate medical examiner and qualified as a medical examiner in Florida.
Can you tell the members of the jury what the duties and responsibilities of an associate medical examiner are?
The short answer to that is we figure out how people die. So there are homicides, suicides, accidents, sudden unexpected deaths, suspicious death, all deaths in police custody, jail, wards of the state, things like that.
Can you tell the members of the jury what type of education you have to be an associate medical examiner?
To be an associate medical examiner in Florida, first of all, you have to be appointed. So I'm appointed by the chief medical examiner, whoever that happens to be. And you have to be a licensed medical doctor, physician. You have to be trained as a pathologist.
Tell the members of the jury what a pathologist does.
Well, a pathologist is a medical doctor. We're the ones that are more laboratory-based, so any kind of testing that's done on your blood, for example, that goes to the laboratory. If you have a mass, a breast mass, for example, that the surgeon removes, we're the ones that figure out if it's cancer or not and do other types of testing and things like that. And then part of what we do, too, are the autopsies, but I subspecialize in forensics, which is more the CSI branch of medicine.
When you say autopsies, can you tell the members of the jury what an autopsy is and why it would be performed?
It depends on the type of case, but it's a medical procedure where I take surgical instruments, I look on the inside of the body and figure out how the person died. I also have to examine the outside of the body as well, and then take all those findings and try to correlate them with the person's history, if it's a crime, if there's anything at a crime scene, things like that. People always think of homicides. Unfortunately, right now, the most cases we're getting are the drug overdoses.
You said that one of the duties of an associate medical examiner is to determine the cause and the manner of a person's death.
Correct.
Can you explain to the jury what the difference is between the cause and the manner of an individual's death?
Sure. A cause of death can be just about anything. It can be something as simple as trauma from a motor vehicle accident, a gunshot wound. It can be lung cancer, heart disease. Most of us die of heart disease. The manner of death, though, I'm limited. I have a choice of either homicide, suicide, accident, natural, or undetermined. Those are the things I can put on a death certificate.
And what tools do you use to make those determinations or those findings?
Everything. So I share information with the police. They have to share information with me. I have access to all your private information, your medical records. I can't share that with the outside world. So it depends on what kind of case it is, your psychosocial history, things like that.
And when you do an autopsy, can you tell the members of the jury how it is that you document your findings or you document the procedure that's performed on a person that is deceased?
There are three ways of doing it. One is with photographs. The second one is I have a report that's dictated and they type it out for me. And the third way of documenting is I have body diagrams. So there's three overlapping ways of documenting things.
May I approach the witness?
Yes, you may.
Doctor, I'm showing you what is marked for identification purposes as State's Composite Exhibit number 27A through C.
Mm-hmm.
Do you recognize those as being body diagrams that you utilized in the case that you're here to testify about?
Yes.
Do they fairly and accurately depict portions of your autopsy and portions of your findings?
Yes, they do.
Judge, I move State's Composite Exhibit 27A through C into evidence.
No objection.
All right, State Composite Exhibit 27A through C will be introduced without objection.
Do you also photo document your portions of the autopsy as it's in progress?
Yeah, the morgue techs do that in progress.
Do you direct the morgue techs what to photograph, or do they sort of follow along?
You know what? They're so experienced that they already know what to do.
But we're just going to approach it.
Yes.
So, Dr. Motte, may I approach Dr. Motte? Showing you what is marked for identification purposes as State's Composite Exhibit 28A through E. Do you recognize State's Composite 28A through E?
Yes, autopsy photos, yes.
Do they fairly and accurately depict photos taken during your autopsy that you're going to testify to in this case?
Yes.
Judge, I move 28A through E into evidence at this time.
Based on the court's ruling.
That's fine.
Dr. Motte, I'm sorry.
State Exhibits 28 through A through E.
Dr. Motte, before you perform an autopsy, does an individual come to the medical examiner's office and are they assigned a unique case identification number?
Yes, they get a case number. It's like a social security number.
And what is the purpose of doing that?
So you know what case you're working on. It's like your social security number. It's used for identification purposes. The number follows you around throughout the case. So photographs, evidence, and things like that.
Is when you take close-up photographs of certain injuries or certain wounds, do you also sometimes display that unique case identification number?
Yes.
And why do you do that?
So you can identify, it stays with the case.
The case that you're here to testify, were you called to do an autopsy on an individual identified to you as James Peoples?
Yes.
And what was the unique medical examiner case number for your autopsy of Mr. Peoples?
It was 2016-1916.
Before you begin to actually cut or manipulate the body, do you take a photograph to memorialize the identity or the face of the individual that you're performing the autopsy on?
Yes.
Judge Van Pelder states 28A.
Yes.
And may the court read the stipulation?
Yes, but could counsel for just a moment? Ladies and gentlemen, the state and the defense stipulate and agree that the decedent is James Reed Peoples, and that he is the person who is pictured in State Exhibit 28A.
So, Dr. Motte, is this the identification picture that you take before performing the autopsy?
Yeah, the morgue tech takes a picture.
Do you take any initial measurements, height and weight of Mr. Peoples before the actual manipulation of the body takes place?
Yeah, the techs do that. He was 6 feet 0 inches and 184 pounds.
And then tell the members of the jury how you proceed with your autopsy.
Well, in general, what you do is you make observations of the body as is. I have body diagrams, notes, and things like that, so I make notations. So there's medical intervention. There's some things on there from fire rescue. I document that as well. And there are photographs taken as well. And then I remove those things as is. If there's any clothing, I will remove those things as well. And then I examine the body as is for anything that's normal or abnormal. So I look at everything from the hair, eye color, to gunshot wounds. And those are, as I go systematically through the examination, everything is photo documented.
May I publish 27, State's Exhibit number 27, Your Honor?
Yes.
Dr. Motte, I'm showing you first what is admitted into evidence as State's Exhibit number 27. Can you tell the members of the jury what we're looking at in State's Exhibit number 27?
That's one of the body diagrams I use. Basically, I use my stick here. It's an entrance gunshot wound. It's red, this black circle. An exit is the square. Another gunshot wound here, and then this is the star where I found a projectile. The rest of these things are from fire rescue, hospital, whatever. These are EKG pads. They put needles in the leg so they can run fluids into his body and things like that.
You use the word medical intervention.
Right.
Is that what you're talking about, and is that what you document in this body diagram?
Yeah, I do.
What is the ET indicated at Mr. Peoples' mouth area?
That's an airway, so they put it in so they can help breathe. It goes down the airway, down your breathing tube, so you can get oxygen to the lungs.
Did you observe any injuries to Mr. Peoples before you began to examine the inside of Mr. Peoples?
Yes, he did. He had gunshot wounds.
And can you tell the members of the jury how many gunshot wounds you observed on Mr. Peoples?
He had 2 gunshot wounds. One was in and out, one entered and didn't exit.
Starting first with State's Exhibit 27B. Actually, no, I'm going to start with State's Exhibit 27C. Did you mark one of the gunshot wounds as a perforating gunshot wound of left chest?
Yes, I did.
Tell the members of the jury what you observed when you looked at the perforating gunshot wound of Mr. Peoples' left chest.
This circle, these are just the way I make my notes. Circle tells me it's an entrance gunshot wound. Black square is an exit gunshot wound. Then I have measurements here, 61 inches above the heels, 2 inches left of the front of his body. I make measurements of the whole. There's no soot, stipple, or muzzle imprint, which tells me I can't tell you the range of fire. I look for things like that. So if it's a contact gunshot wound or close, sometimes you can see evidence of close range fire. I can't tell you how far away the shooter was. There was no projectile, 0 projectile. This man was x-rayed. See if there are any bullets that are still in his body. There was nothing there. The bullet involved, the worst things was the left lung. Hit rib, lung, scapula, which is like your chicken wing on the back, and then it exited. The measurements are 59 inches above the heels. So the pathway, from his perspective, was his front to back downward, and then neither left nor right. So front, back, down.
Can you tell the members of the jury how it is that you're able to determine a bullet's pathway through the body?
You do an autopsy. You open them up and you look on the inside, see what's been damaged, and follow the pathway.
Will that be a straight line from where the muzzle of the firearm was at the time that the trigger is pulled?
Pretty much, yes. So it enters where the circle is and exits where the square is. So if you do an imaginary line through the body.
Will the pathway change depending on the positioning of the firearm as well as the positioning of the person that is being shot?
I'm not sure I understand the question. The firearm for that split second in time, the firearm has to line up so that the bullet enters where the circle is and then exits where that square is.
I guess my question is that if it were to go up to down or left to right, what does that measurement come from?
It comes from me making observations. So there can be different scenarios. We describe the pathway through the body as if the person were standing like this on the body diagram. Now, he's not standing like this, but this is what we use in medicine. It's a standard operating procedure type situation. We use that for everything, x-rays, CT scans.
So when you say left to right, you mean left to right on this body diagram?
On the body diagram, right.
You told us that the wound on the front in the neck area was an entrance wound.
Yes.
Showing you states 28B. Can you tell the members of the jury what we see in 28B?
This is an entrance gunshot wound. That's the hole right here. And then it's dark like this because his actually skin is dried out. So that's why there's a color change. And what I don't see is soot, stipple, or muzzle imprint, so there's no gunpowder on the skin. There's no evidence of a contact, so the weapon is not pushing up against his body.
How can you tell that that is an entrance gunshot wound as opposed to an exit gunshot wound?
It's a punched-out hole. So when a bullet hits your skin, it usually punches a hole, just like a hole punch in a piece of paper.
Showing you 28D. Can you tell us what we see in 28D?
That's an exit gunshot wound. What you also don't see is what you saw in the other one was the abrasion. So as the bullet's going in, the edge of the skin is worn away. So that's why you've got that really dark area. You don't see that here because the bullet's going from the inside coming out. So it's more like a slit-like. The edges of the wound actually come back together really nicely. Entrance gunshot wound, you can't do that. It's pretty straightforward.
What was the effect on Mr. Peoples' body of this gunshot wound?
What happens is he has difficulty breathing because his lung has been shot and there's blood that accumulates in the body.
Was this gunshot wound a fatal gunshot wound?
Yes, he had 2 fatal gunshot wounds.
Can you explain what you mean by 2 fatal gunshot wounds?
He has 2 gunshot wounds that, in terms of cause of death, I thought both of them contributed to his death.
You indicated to us that you also found a penetrating gunshot wound of his left chest and abdomen.
Correct.
Showing you states 27B. Can you tell the members of the jury what your observations were of the penetrating gunshot wound to Mr. Peoples' left chest?
Black circle is the entrance. I'm trying to show with this arrow it's in that direction. The bullet came to rest on the skin just underneath, but before it got that, it entered here. It went through a muscle that's on the inside, went through his intestines, pancreas, it went through his liver. This diaphragm I mentioned, that's a muscle that helps you breathe. It went through his heart, went between a couple of ribs, and it came to rest where this little star is. And then I made an incision. You can see it on x-ray, but you can actually feel it with your gloved hands. I make an incision next to the bullet, and I kind of manipulate it and get the bullet out, and that goes to the crime lab. And then this is blood that accumulated in his chest and abdomen.
Showing you states 28C. Can you tell the members of the jury what we're seeing in 28C?
That's an entrance gunshot wound. It's a nice, classic punched-out hole, just like I mentioned. A hole punch in a piece of paper, the bullet punches a hole in the skin. What I don't see is soot, stipple, muzzle imprint, so I can't tell you the range of fire.
You said that this gunshot wound is a penetrating gunshot wound, but the first gunshot wound you said was a perforating gunshot wound. Can you explain to the members of the jury what the difference is between those 2 terms?
Yeah, penetrating, the bullet enters, doesn't exit. Perforating means the bullet goes in and it goes out.
So did you x-ray Mr. Peoples before you began to cut in that area to locate the projectile?
Yeah, before we open him up, he's x-rayed.
And do you ultimately cut Mr. Peoples to remove the projectile from him?
Yes.
Showing you states 28E. Can you tell the members of the jury what we see in 28E?
Yeah, so this is his chest, his left nipple here. This is the bullet. So what I've done is I've cut into the skin, and then this is the projectile that's inside of him. It's photographed as is. It's removed and goes into a sealed evidence envelope and then to the crime lab. You turned the projectile over to members of law enforcement? Yes.
Judge, I'd move State's Exhibit number 29 into evidence.
No objection.
Okay, State Exhibit 29 will be introduced without objection.
What was the effect of the second gunshot wound, the penetrating gunshot wound?
A couple of things. He's bleeding internally. He's having difficulty breathing because his lung got shot. Eventually what happens is blood pressure goes down, person passes out, and they don't wake up.
I believe you may have answered this, but was this a fatal gunshot wound?
Yes.
Were you able to tell the pathway of this bullet through Mr. Peoples' body?
Yes. From that anatomic position, as if this person were standing in this artificial position here, it went from his back to front, it went upward and neither right nor left. So back to front, upward.
Would the wounds that you observed be consistent with Mr. Peoples being first shot while standing in front of the shooter and then turning to run and being shot in the back?
Judge, I'm going to object. We're approaching.
Yes.
Dr. Motte, I'm going to show you a portion of an exhibit that is in evidence. And are you able to see from there, from where you're seated?
Yes.
I'm going to publish State's Exhibit 1D, and then I'm going to ask you a question.
Is this the decedent?
Yes.
Okay.
Based on what you observed in States 1D, are the wounds that you observed to Mr. Peoples consistent with him being shot the first time when he is at the front of the door?
Yes.
And then being shot a second time as he is leaving the door area and moving towards the gas pumps?
Yes.
Based on the totality of the evidence in this case, did you come to an opinion as to the cause and manner of Mr. Peoples' death?
On his death certificate, cause of death was gunshot wounds of chest and abdomen, manner of death, homicide.
I have one moment here. I have no further questions.
Thank you. Cross-examination.
Hey, good afternoon, or good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
I want to clarify with you for the jury this term of homicide.
Right.
So the ME's office does not make a legal decision on whether or not this was a crime or not. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So the term homicide means death either through the hand or by someone else. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So as far as a legal decision, obviously that's going to be up to the jury.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any legal?
No, sir.
Dr. Motte, thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Honor.
How long was the interview as far as the testimony?
15 minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me just let you take an early lunch then. So we'll take a recess until about 1:20. So let me have you back here at 1:20. While you're out on this recess, please remember all the rules that I said before. Do not discuss this case with each other or anyone else. Don't call family members and tell them what you just heard or what you heard yesterday or anything like that. Don't look up on your phones or any electronic devices anything about this case. Don't do any research. Don't look up names, locations, anything. And with that, I hope you have a nice lunch. We'll see you back at 1:20. Thank you very much.
Hands upside down in church, please.
For the record, I just entered the stipulation as court exhibit number 2.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else before we take a lunch recess?
No, sir. I will print out, Mr. Frederick, a clean copy of the statement as Court Exhibit number 1, I believe.
Yeah.
Court Exhibit 3.
Okay. And if you are able to make a copy of the transcript, if you could provide me with one as well?
Of course.
Okay, great. All right, I'll see everybody at 1:20. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,